Su Qingteng crossed the vast land of Shenzhou and was adopted as an apprentice by Shang Zhengliang. He entered the Chaoyang peak of Qingyun Gate to practice and began his legendary journey. This is a new story, belonging to the story of the traveler, Su Qingteng. Keywords of the novel. Qingyun. No pop-ups starting from joining Chaoyang Peak, Qingyun. Starting from joining Chaoyang Peak, download the complete TXT collection, Qingyun. Starting from joining Chaoyang Peak, read the latest chapters. Chapter 1. Su Qingteng and Shang Zhengliang, for collection. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Su Qingteng and Shang Zhengliang, for collection. Shenzhou is vast and boundless. To the north is the land of suffering on the ice sheet, to the south is 100,000 mountains, to the east is the vast sea, to the northwest is the vast desert, and to the southwest is the death swamp. Only Zhongtu Shenzhou is the richest land in the world. Roar! Even the poor people living in the fertile land of Zhongzhou and in the remote suburbs will still suffer from the invasion of fierce birds and monsters. Hongye village is a poor village at the foot of Taohua Mountain, with only over 40 households relying on farming and hunting for a living. Due to the presence of a large red leaf tree in the center of the village, with a thick trunk and lush branches and leaves, it is called Red Leaf Village. Every autumn, red-like flames of leaves fall on the entire village, which is the most beautiful time for Hongye village. Unfortunately, on this day, the quiet and peaceful atmosphere in Hongye village was disrupted, with thatched cottages collapsing, corpses scattered everywhere, and screams of shock coming from the streets and alleys. A massive demon tiger is wreaking havoc on humans. The demon tiger, about 3 zhang long, was fat and sturdy, with yellow and black fur that shimmered with a strange evil energy in red light in the sunlight. Its shattered golden pupils emitted a cruel and cold light of wisdom, and its body moved between the thatched cottage. It lowered its head and shrugged its nose, always able to smell the scent of humans hiding in the air. Am I going to die like this? In the corner of a deserted house, Su Qingteng leaned tightly against the cold wall, holding a wooden knife in his hand and holding his breath to listen to the commotion outside the thatched cottage. Su Qingteng is a traveler who was an ordinary person in his past life. One day after work, he was hit and killed by a passing mud truck, and when he opened his eyes, he became an orphan in Hongye village. After inquiring, he found out that this is the vast land of Shenzhou, with legends of Qingyun Gate, incense-burning valley, and Tianyin Temple. Unfortunately, before he could pursue the immortal fate, he was pushed to the brink by a demon tiger in the Peach Blossom Mountain. This beast is a monster, giving birth to spiritual wisdom. Ordinary people cannot escape it and can only silently wait for death. This is the difficult situation of the lower-class people. I'm really unwilling to accept it. Su Qingteng gritted his teeth and his palm, holding the firewood knife, trembled slightly. Clouds follow dragons, winds follow tigers. He hid behind the wall and had already smelled the fishy smell emanating from the demon tiger's body. It gradually approached. Even if I die, I will cut you down. Su Qingteng said fiercely. The sound of footsteps gradually approached, and he could hear the snoring sound from the demon tiger's throat, as if the next second it was about to break through the doors and windows and crawl in. 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds. Su Qingteng's hair stood up, his body icy cold, as if he had fallen into an ice cave. The physical fear made him tremble slightly, but the psychological ferocity and perseverance made him tightly grasp the firewood knife. In a pair of calm eyes, a fierce expression flashed, the soles of the feet pressed against the ground, and the body tightened like a big bow, ready to jump out at any time. Evil beast, how dare you harm people? Just as the footsteps approached, Su Qingteng's body was tense and ready to go all out. Suddenly there was a loud roar from heaven and earth, as if the gods were angry. The next second, in the dimly lit thatched cottage, a dazzling golden light suddenly lit up, followed by the loud sound of a huge object falling heavily to the ground. Bang! The sound was muffled, as if it had smashed a big hole in the earth. Even Su Qingteng felt the ground shake slightly under his feet. Who is it? Su Qingteng hesitated in disbelief, feeling the joy of surviving the disaster in his heart. He stood up slightly and leaned closer to the window to gaze. Whoosh! A golden sword light suddenly flashed past the window. Xianjian. Su Qingteng's breathing was rapid and his eyes widened. Can it be someone from Qingyun Gate? Su Qingteng was excited, but he couldn't be certain. Because the elderly in the village said that in addition to the immortals at Qingyun Gate, there are also immortal families in the bustling city, claiming to be cultivators. He moved the tables, chairs, and benches blocking the door, opened it, and walked out. The strong smell of blood in the air made him nauseous. However, his small face was excited, and he had already seen the demon tiger lying in a pool of blood. Next to its massive body stood a figure in a purple robe. The person was tall and dressed in a purple robe. When he saw Su Qingteng's figure, his solemn and dignified face showed a kind and compassionate look. Child, don't be afraid, the demon tiger has already been executed by me. After speaking, he introduced himself and said, Have you heard of Qingyun Gate? I am the cultivator of Qingyun Gate, the first true person in Chaoyang Peak. Shang Zhengliang. Shang Zhengliang. This name fell into Su Qingteng's heart, causing a big wave of rendering. He widened his eyes and stared closely at the figure in purple clothes. That solemn and dignified face, smiling lightly in the bright sunshine, seemed like an indelible image deeply engraved in Su Qingteng's mind. Shang Zhengliang, thank you very much for saving me, and thank you very much for avenging the villagers of our Hongya village. Su Qingteng quickly ran over, respectfully clasped his fists, and suddenly knelt down with a thud. In Shang Zhengliang's surprised expression, he said firmly, Please accept me as your disciple, master. Bang! 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 Shang Zhengliang couldn't refuse, and Su Qingteng had already touched his forehead, prostrated himself, and knocked his head heavily 9 times. If Shang Zhengliang doesn't shout to stop or refuse, he can keep knocking. Child, get up first. Shang Zhengliang smiled slightly, helped Su Qingteng up, and made him stand up. His gaze immediately fell on Su Qingteng's rosy and dusty forehead. Regardless of the qualifications, this wit and sincerity are enough to move people. Qingyun sect, won't accept apprentices casually. Firstly, it depends on my qualifications, and secondly, I need to sever ties with others. If you worship me as a teacher, do you know that you will surpass your parents? Master, I am an orphan, Su Qingteng said calmly. Shang Zhengliang hesitated for a moment, seemingly realizing something. He looked around with a faint sigh in his eyes, and his heart had softened by 3 points. Then he continued, Let me see your qualifications. As long as your qualifications are not bad, I will make the decision. I will take you back to Qingyun and enter the gate of Chaoyang Peak. Thank you very much, master, Su Qingteng said gratefully. Shang Zhengliang's true yuan was in motion, with spiritual light shining in his eyes. His gaze fell on Su Qingteng's thin body, and he saw a brilliant and dazzling 9-colored light reflecting outside Su Qingteng's body. In the void above his head, a spiritual light broke through the heavenly gate and almost shot straight into the clouds. Shang Zhengliang's expression froze, his eyes widened and he could hardly move them away. The dazzling 9-colored light in his eyes seemed to engulf his figure. Hiss, how powerful is this child's soul with such a strong spiritual light. Shang Zhengliang took a cold breath and then frowned and pondered. And what's going on with the 9-colored radiance? The Qingyun sect has been established for over 2,000 years, and I haven't heard of anyone's spiritual light reflecting the 9-colored radiance. It's almost becoming an immortal. Even the Green-Leaf Patriarch, who lived over 1,000 years ago, only said that his spiritual light was shining brightly and that he rose 9 feet out of the void above his head, faintly condensing a blue and black light. These 9 colors, hiss. Shang Zhengliang's head was dizzy, almost unimaginable. He had higher qualifications than the Green-Leaf Patriarch. Is he still a human being? Is the heavenly god reincarnated? However, no matter what, Su Qingteng has been accepted by Shang Zhengliang. Shang Zhengliang couldn't conceal his inner joy, and a pair of hot and dazzling eyes stared at Su Qingteng. Suddenly, he burst out laughing with a nervous tone. "Child, you have a good talent and can join my sect. What's your name?" Shang Zhengliang's eyes were kind and he touched Su Qingteng's head. "My name is Su Qingteng," Su Qingteng said calmly. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Admission. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2. Admission spells are not omnipotent. The post-disaster reconstruction of Hongye village requires the efforts of the villagers themselves. Shang Zhengliang cannot help them much, and he can kill the demon tiger for them to the best of his ability. There are too many people suffering in the world, even those who cultivate themselves are powerless. In this demon tiger rebellion, there were over 30 survivors in Hongye village, all with numb expressions, as if they had lost their souls. Only when he saw Shang Zhengliang and Su Qingteng did his numb and indifferent faces show a hint of hope. Someone requested that Shang Zhengliang take them away from this land of suffering, hoping to follow Shang Zhengliang to practice. Shang Zhengliang shook his head and all refused. As he said, Qingyun Gate will not randomly recruit disciples. Shang Zhengliang turned the true Yuan and looked over with a pair of spiritual eyes. All the adults and children of the survivors of Hongye village had average qualifications and were not even qualified to worship under the Qingyun sect. So, Shang Zhengliang shook his head with regret and left with Su Qingteng. In the envious gaze of the survivors of Hongye village, Shang Zhengliang and Su Qingteng stood on a golden immortal sword, suddenly transforming into a golden stream of light, shooting into the distant sky. The immortal sword was brilliant and majestic, emitting a golden radiance like the morning sun. A dazzling golden stream of light came from the tip of the sword, enveloping the entire body, allowing the immortal sword to fly freely in the blue and dark sky. On the tip of the sword, Shang Zhengliang stood with his hand down, his expression calm and natural, his temperament transcendent, and the tip exuding the charm of an immortal family. Su Qingteng's face was tense, and he stood behind him. An invisible suction came from the soles of his shoes, firmly attaching his body to the broad sword body, which was extremely strange. Is this the flying sword? Su Qingteng widened his eyes. On the 9th day, the strong wind was strong, but Su Qingteng stood inside the pale golden transparent film, feeling the gentle breeze brushing his cheeks, which was very cool. He lowered his head and looked down at his feet, only to see a vast expanse of blue sky and a vast sea of clouds. The green mountains and waters shrank into a picture, appearing and disappearing in the sea of clouds, swiftly sweeping back. Looking back. A golden stream of light, like a god wielding a pen to cut through the sky, leaving a long white mark of air waves, like a jet plane seen in a past life. Such a spectacular sight stirred Su Qingteng's heart, making it difficult to calm it down. Suddenly, Su Qingteng looked up at the sky with his head high, a bright and dazzling sun hanging in the air. He raised his right hand and covered it in front of his line of sight. The light leaking through his fingers was comfortable on his face. Su Qingteng squinted his eyes and felt the warmth of the sun, as if he could get closer to it. Perhaps one day, I can fly out of the sky and see if 9 days away is the starry universe, the turbulent flow of time and space, or something I have never seen before. Su Qingteng murmured softly, as he had read too many time travel novels in his past life, so he couldn't be sure if the world in this vast land of China was a planet or a continent floating in the starry sky. Or, is it a leaf of the world tree? A dimension space naturally formed in a turbulent flow of time and space, breaking through the spatial barrier is the turbulent flow of time and space, and even the hardest thing will be stirred into pieces. All of this, we can only explore the truth after our strength is strong. Su Qingteng murmured, with a firm gaze on his small face with clear eyebrows and clear eyes. The freshness of flying with the imperial sword passed quickly. Su Qingteng stood behind Shang Zhengliang, standing motionless for 4 hours. Even though he has a resilient personality, his calves tremble slightly and he can hardly stand. This is much more painful than taking a plane, Su Qingteng said painfully. It's like taking a train for more than 10 hours and still getting a station ticket. Sure enough, the cultivators flying on the sword board is too low. Level. Su Qingteng thought with disdain and whimsy, it's better to combine body and sword, transform sword light into rainbow, and fly to heaven and earth in a more graceful way. It's both fast and comfortable. I hope one day in the future, my strength will become stronger, and I can let the disciples of Qingyun Gate see what real sword flying is. Little did they know that just as Su Qingteng's mind was wide open, a slight smile appeared on the corner of Shang Zhengliang's mouth, and a satisfied expression flashed in his eyes. Shang Zhengliang is testing Su Qingteng's Tao heart. To cultivate, natural talent and understanding are important, but a steadfast Taoist heart is even more important. The cultivator severs ties to worldly life and cultivates in the deep mountains. Their days are extremely difficult, and they are not determined individuals who can persist, let alone achieve great success. So every time Shang Zhengliang takes a new disciple up the mountain, he will deliberately test his character and heart to see if his disciple's moral character is good, and if he can break free. Still calm. It is obvious that Su Qingteng has satisfied Shang Zhengliang. Not only is my talent high, but even my Tao heart is resilient. Has the heavens really given me a genius comparable to the founder of Qingyun sect? Shang Zhengliang thought excitedly, and then the true element turned. Under his command, the immortal sword smoothly and quickly shot into a low mountain. The cost of flying the imperial sword was extremely high, and Shang Zhengliang maintained it for 4 hours, but also needed to meditate to recover. Moreover, as the sun sets in the western mountains and the sun sets in the west, it's time to rest. In the pitch-black night, the bonfire in the low mountains and dense forests was bright. Su Qingteng sat cross-legged, practicing the first level of mind technique taught by Shang Zhengliang in the Tai Chi Xian Qing Dao. The first level of mind technique in the Tai Chi Xian Qing Dao is the Qi-inducing realm. Those who need to cultivate should sit quietly, release their mind and restrain various troubles, and bring the spiritual energy of heaven and earth into their body to carry out the great Zhou Tian Yunchuan. Through this, they can share the same breath with heaven and earth, and then understand the creation of heaven and earth. If spiritual energy can be introduced into the body and continuously travel through the 36 great Zhou Tian, then one's own meridians are already stable and can cultivate higher levels to achieve the effect of health preservation. But Su Qingteng sat cross-legged in silence, trying to let go of his thoughts and restrain all kinds of troubles, but miscellaneous thoughts flooded in and he couldn't settle in. It failed again. The third attempt to settle down failed, and Su Qingteng looked regretful. Shang Zhengliang also looked surprised and said, "It shouldn't be so. As a child, you should have a pure heart, not just a childlike innocence. How could you have so many troubles and distractions? Did you be frightened by that demon tiger?" Su Qingteng knew that it was not so. He is a traveler, with the vast culture of another world in his mind. Once you try to settle in, it feels like an information explosion, with various distractions floating in your mind and unable to dissipate. This made Su Qingteng feel heavy in his voice. Low, "Master, doesn't Qingyun sect have a method to restrain distractions?" "Indeed, there is." Shang Zhengliang pondered. "There is a secret technique in Taoism called the Qingxin mantra, which can restrain distractions and cultivate the ultimate state of mind that is as good as water. However, only Changmen Tongtian Peak and Longzhou Peak have this kind of secret technique, and Chaoyang Peak does not have it." Qingxin mantra. Su Qingteng's spiritual light suddenly appeared. "If the heart is as clear as ice, will the sky collapse? I don't know if the ice heart technique in Fengyun has any effect. Anyway, treat the dead horse as a living horse doctor and give it a try." Su Qingteng has traveled through time, with a soul mutation and extraordinary memory. Memories of his past life can vividly appear in his mind like movie scenes. At this moment, the mnemonic of Ice Heart Technique comes to mind word by word, and Su Qingteng sits cross-legged, repeatedly reciting it silently. If the heart is as clear as ice, the sky will collapse without fear. If everything changes, it will remain calm, and the spirit will be happy and calm. If you forget yourself and guard one, you will have 6 great calmness. If you refrain from nourishing your energy, you will be selfless and do nothing. Whether it's the Taoist Qingxin mantra or the Ice Heart Technique in the wind and clouds, they are all written descriptions of the screen, slowly hypnotizing oneself to eliminate distractions. Su Qingteng silently recited the mnemonic, gradually feeling his soul clear and pure, like a solid ice, and no distractions can disturb him. All things in heaven and earth are strange and varied, and the originally dark environment has become colorful. Is this the spiritual energy of heaven and earth? Su Qingteng murmured and immediately activated the first layer of mind technique in Tai Chi Xian Qing Dao. Suddenly, he felt a tingling sensation at the coccyx, as if he had touched the electric switch to explode hair. His body's pores and orifices opened, breathing together with heaven and earth. The colorful breath entered his body through the pores and orifices of his body, flowing through all 4 limbs and bones. Su Qingteng has successfully settled in. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Those Born to Know. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Those born to know, if the heart is as clear as ice, won't the sky collapse? Shang Zhengliang muttered, what did this kid read? The next second, Su Qingteng suddenly fell asleep, his whole body opening up and breathing together with heaven and earth. The rich spiritual energy of heaven and earth entered his body. Shang Zhengliang was stunned and suddenly burst into an incredible thought, my goodness, isn't he reciting the Qingxin curse? How could he have the Qingxin curse? Shang Zhengliang widened his eyes. Has anyone taught him before that the people of Tongtian Peak or Longzhou Peak? Shang Zhengliang's mind was in chaos, wanting to immediately ask Su Qingteng for an answer, but he saw Su Qingteng sitting cross-legged in a cultivation posture and patiently waited. This waiting time is only half an hour. Su Qingteng immersed himself in meditation, drawing the spiritual energy from heaven and earth into his body, following the circulation of the great Zhou Tian until a tingling sensation came from his meridians, and then he finished his cultivation. Only half an hour. Su Qingteng frowned slightly. Shang Zhengliang previously said that disciples of Qingyun sect can also have the ability to bring qi into their bodies. Individuals with ordinary qualifications can only maintain a residency for half an hour at a time. Those with excellent qualifications will last for 1 or 2 hours or even more. It can be seen that Su Qingteng's root and bone qualifications are not as good. Is it because my body is too weak? Su Qingteng lowered his head and glanced at his thin body, then remembered the example of Zhang Xiaofan chopping bamboo from behind the mountain. As long as you exercise, your physical fitness will also improve. In the martial arts novel sects of the past, didn't new disciples also need to chop firewood and carry water? Besides, I have a faster way. Su Qingteng's mind flashed with a flash of his essence, and images of practicing Tai Chi sword suddenly appeared in his mind. In his past life, he had bald hair and almost collapsed from working. He once enrolled in a martial arts class called Tai Chi sword, but now he has played a significant role. Practicing Tai Chi sword is definitely more effective than chopping bamboo and carrying water, Su Qingteng said confidently. Moreover, there is the spiritual energy of heaven and earth here. Re-practicing Tai Chi sword may produce unexpected magical effects, so it must be worth trying. Just as Su Qingteng stood up and was about to pose to practice Tai Chi sword, Shang Zhengliang suddenly asked, Qingteng, what spell did you recite just now? Was it the Qingxin curse? Who taught you? Have you ever seen anyone from Qingyun sect besides me? He finished speaking in a burst of lightning. A pair of bright and lively eyes stared eagerly at Su Qingteng. Su Qingteng was stunned for a moment and immediately said, "Master, that's the ice heart technique, which I created myself." Or rather, a mnemonic suddenly came to mind. At this point, Su Qingteng smiled and said, "In addition to the ice heart technique, I also have the meditation technique and clear heart technique. All of them have the magical effect of restraining distractions and making the soul pure and clear." Then, under the stunned expression of Shang Zhengliang, Su Qingteng spat out lotus flowers and recited the mnemonic in his mind word by word without hesitation. Shang Zhengliang was dumbfounded. Self-created. A mnemonic that suddenly came to mind. Shang Zhengliang had lived for over 300 years and had never heard such a strange thing before. He couldn't help but mutter to himself in a low voice, "Is it true that there are people born to know?" Shang Zhengliang took a deep breath. "Qingteng, this child, is not a reincarnation of any great ability. The reincarnation of a fairy suddenly activated the power of the previous life's wisdom, right? This is also too magical." When Shang Zhengliang was shocked, Su Qingteng smiled and, in front of Shang Zhengliang, put out the pile technique of Tai Chi sword and began practicing martial arts. "What is this doing again?" Shang Zhengliang widened his eyes, full of doubt. However, looking at Su Qingteng's serious demeanor, he didn't dare to disturb him. After taking a few serious glances, Shang Zhengliang pondered the path and believed that Su Qingteng was practicing a secret technique, which made him smile bitterly. "This child is really unexpected," Shang Zhengliang said with a complex mood, "Who is the master and who is the disciple? It's unbelievable that they were born to know. On their first day of learning, they gave me such a big surprise. It's almost as good as the Qingye patriarch 1,300 years ago, and even more so. The heavens pity me, and I'm afraid the prosperity of Chaoyang Peak and Qingyun Gate will fall on this child, Qingteng." Speaking of which, Shang Zhengliang chuckled and said, "There are 3 secret spells that are comparable to the clear heart mantra. As a master, I have gained the light of an apprentice. The foundation of Chaoyang Peak has increased again. Let's see how Qingteng, a child, may still have more secret spells in his mind. I can't imagine how far he can go in the future. Can mortals really become immortals?" Shang Zhengliang shook his head and said with suppressed excitement, 6 years from now, it will be the 7 meridians meeting martial arts. With the terrifying talent and understanding of Qingteng, he will definitely be able to cultivate to the 4th level of the Jade Clear Realm and above. If he can showcase his talents in the 7 meridians meeting martial arts, and even win the championship in one fell swoop. My Chaoyang Peak is even more prosperous. I see who else dares to shout in my ear, saying that my Chaoyang Peak is filled with smoke and miasma, and that I will accept everyone, which has ruined the reputation of Qingyun Gate." Shang Zhengliang snorted in anger, recalling bad memories. An excited and angry look appeared on his solemn and dignified face. Among the 7 branches of Qingyunmen, Shang Zhengliang is the most unique one. He has sharp swordsmanship and profound Taoist techniques, and was once one of the 5 main characters in Qingyun sect's Wild Journey. Unfortunately, during the first battle between the righteous and demonic, Chaoyang Peak suffered heavy losses. Shang Zhengliang was appointed in the face of danger and succeeded as the first real person in Chaoyang Peak. Afterwards, I fell asleep all night and worked hard to prosper Chaoyang Peak. It can be called the otherworldly version of Yubuchuan. However, he was more open-minded and advanced than Yubuchuan. Under immense pressure, he managed to forge a new path, breaking old rules and accepting apprentices on a large scale. Shang Zhengliang spent most of his time traveling outside. Every time I come back from my travels, I bring back 1 or 2 disciples with excellent qualifications. Gradually, the number of disciples in Chaoyang Peak reached over 200, restoring a prosperous atmosphere and becoming the most numerous among the 7 veins of Qingyun Gate. However, this has also sparked criticism from other factions, who believe that Shang Zhengliang neglected his official duties and took in everyone, causing chaos in Chaoyang Peak and tarnishing the reputation of Qingyun Gate. Shang Zhengliang didn't say anything on the surface, but he kept holding his breath to prove himself. Spread a wide net, gather more fish, choose the best and follow them. Shang Zhengliang thought angrily, if the heavens show mercy, reward me with an apprentice whose aptitude and intelligence are comparable to that of Master Qingye. I'll see what you say. The bold words of the beginning still echoed in his ears, and a flame surged in Shang Zhengliang's chest, with a pair of eager and tense eyes staring at Su Qingteng. Qingteng, I am looking forward to the day when you will showcase your talents. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Qingyun Mountain Range. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Qingyun Mountain Range. Su Qingteng has watched The Legend of Dragons and Snakes, and the martial arts class teacher also said that the foundation of Kung Fu is the post-workhorse step. So the first step in practicing boxing is to stand on a stake and take a horse stance. The energy originates from the heel, mainly from the waist, shaped by the fingers, and originates from the spine. Su Qingteng's mind was filled with images of Tai Chi stake technique. Stand naturally, embrace naturally into a circle, grasp the ground with 5 fingers on the soles of the feet, and burst into a strong force. As you breathe and exhale, your posture also fluctuates. This internal force tightens and loosens, breathing and inhaling, and exercising the muscles and bones of the body. Get started so quickly. Su Qingteng looked ahead and crouched down like a galloping horse. In no time, he practiced with sincerity, his body warm, and a trace of impurities and dirt in his body were excreted through his body's pores. The rich vitality of heaven and earth also enters the body through the pores and orifices of the body, covering muscles, bones, and flesh. Su Qingteng became more and more addicted as he practiced, so he stood there all night. The next day at dawn, purple energy came from the east, and the cultivation had just ended. The plan of the day lies in the morning. Shang Zhengliang sat cross-legged and said to Su Qingteng, the sun rises at the beginning, and the purple energy comes from the east. It is the purest spiritual elixir in the world. Those who practice can take a sip of the sun's purple energy into their body, strengthen their spirit, nourish their body, and have infinite benefits. It is important to understand it seriously and not slack off. Su Qingteng nodded, followed by cross-legged meditation, facing east, and used the introductory mind technique of Tai Chi Xian Qing Dao to introduce Qi into the body, following the movement of the great Zhou heaven. This time, Su Qingteng settled down quickly. Perhaps it was a night of hard work on Tai Chi stake technique that Su Qingteng's spirit was vibrant, and there were not many distractions arising. He closed his eyes and meditated, reciting the ice heart technique 3 times before entering the level of Ji Su Ji Shou Jing Du. Suddenly, he saw the vast purple energy between heaven and earth. Is this the Donglai purple Qi? Su Qingteng thought to himself, his whole body opening up, breathing together with heaven and earth. The rich purple sun aura submerged Su Qingteng's body, nourishing his spirit and physique. Perhaps it is the wonderful use of the purple energy of the sun, or perhaps it is the exercise of muscles and bones. Su Qingteng's cultivation speed has significantly increased this time. The rich purple energy of the sun enters the body, not only nourishing the body and spirit, expanding meridians, but also dyeing the spiritual energy of the body into purple. In the flow of purple light, every orifices and acupoints are rapidly filled. There are 365 acupoints in the human body, each connected to form the 12 meridians and 8 extraordinary meridians, which are the meridian diagram of the human body. At this moment, Su Qingteng breathed in the purple Qi from the east, and the 3 orifices of Dai Mai, Wu Shu, and Wei Dao were filled and connected to each other in a circular motion, feeling the hot air in the waist and abdomen. The first meridian of the 8 extraordinary meridians, Dai Mai, cultivation, has been completed. Half an hour later, the sun leaped above the sea level, and the purple air from the east between heaven and earth dissipated. Su Qingteng was energetic, and Su exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. He gained too much from this cultivation. When looking inside with closed eyes, the 3 orifices in the body emit purple light, which connects and flows together. The spiritual energy circulates back and forth, causing the waist and abdomen to be filled with hot air. On the first day of entry, complete the cultivation of the first meridian of the 8 extraordinary meridians. This talent and insight are truly extraordinary. Su Qingteng is full of energy and looks forward to the future. Not long after, a golden immortal sword shot into the sky, and Shang Zhengliang continued to fly towards the direction of the Qingyun mountains with Su Qingteng. Su Qingteng stood on the immortal sword, taking horse steps and practicing pile skills. His feet were attached to the broad sword body, his posture was round, and he looked ahead, breathing and exhaling, rising and falling one by one. To practice martial arts, you must persevere. Su Qingteng's martial arts class teacher in his mind said, "When do you practice the post-skill horse step into your bones, eating and walking while riding a horse? This skill will be mastered." Su Qingteng is trying this. Shang Zhengliang flew with his sword, feeling the strange power emanating from the Zhengliang immortal sword. He couldn't help but express surprise and say, "What secret technique has Qingteng practiced?" Starting from Hongye village, Shang Zhengliang flew his sword for 4 consecutive days. Su Qingteng is practicing martial arts while eating and walking. Gradually, Tai Chi stake technique entered the room, strengthening the muscles and bones of the body, expanding and extending the meridians, and expelling impurities and dirt through the orifices, making the body increasingly pure and flawless. So the cultivation speed has greatly increased, and the second Yin Qiao pulse has also been completed. On this day, Shang Zhengliang flew with his sword, carrying Su Qingteng, who was obsessed with cultivation. Suddenly, from afar, he saw a magnificent mountain range stretching for hundreds of miles with undulating peaks. Qingyun Gate is here. Shang Zhengliang excitedly reminded Su Qingteng. Is this the Qingyun Mountains? Su Qingteng murmured to himself, seeing 7 peaks rising high into the clouds, with clouds and mist swirling around the mountainside, creating a magnificent scenery. Getting closer, with towering forests, waterfalls and peculiar rocks, rare birds and beasts, it is stunning and awe-inspiring. At the foot of Qingyun Mountain is an ancient city, with a surging river passing through the city. It is surrounded by mountains and rivers, with beautiful scenery and blooming flowers, creating a magnificent scene of heaven on earth. That's Chaoyang City, Shang Zhengliang said with a smile. It's one of the famous important towns in the central plains of Shenzhou. When you reach the 4th level of Yuqing realm, you can go down the mountain to experience. Su Qingteng smiled and nodded, looking down at Chaoyang City from afar. He thought to himself, I remember in the mountains and seas of Chaoyang City, there is a famous dish called steamed sleeping fish. In the future, when you go down the mountain to experience it, you must go and taste it. The immortal sword pierced through the sky above Chaoyang City and flew straight into the east side of Qingyun mountain range. Shang Zhengliang introduced, Qingyun Gate has 7 veins. Our Chaoyang Peak is located on the east side, and as soon as the sun rises from the horizon, the earliest ray of sunlight falls onto the peak, and the latest beam of sunlight also converges on the peak, hence the name Chaoyang Peak. The Guangming Peak at the peak is also the best scenic spot for watching sunrise and sunset, no less than the so-called 6 scenic spots of Qingyun. A towering mountain peak rises into the clouds, with clouds and mist swirling around the mountainside, creating a magnificent and majestic scenery. Halfway up the mountain, there is a continuous and undulating architectural palace complex, like a heavenly palace, shining with colorful brilliance under the sunlight, creating a dreamy scene. Qingyun Gate, I'm finally here. Su Qingteng took a deep breath and followed Shang Zhengliang's imperial sword down the mountainside of Chaoyang Peak, landing in front of a palace gate. The palace is grand and magnificent, with flying eaves and upturned corners. On the central plaque, there is a dragon seal and phoenix seal script, with 3 large characters written in golden lacquer font. Chaoyang Hall. This is the main hall of Chaoyang Peak, which is the core of Chaoyang Peak. At this moment, 2 disciples in yellow are guarding in front of the gate of Chaoyang Hall. They see a golden immortal sword flying towards them, landing Shang Zhengliang and a young man. The 2 of them immediately pay homage. I see, Master, Master. You have finally returned. Is this your new apprentice? Congratulations to Master, you have received another excellent disciple. I have a promising future at Chaoyang Peak. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Chu Yuhong and Shen Tiandou. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The source has no content or has errors. Chapter 6. Introduction Ceremony. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Introduction Ceremony in the magnificent Chaoyang Palace. More than 200 disciples from Chaoyang Peak all came together, looking at Qingteng, who was surrounded by stars and moons. Most of the young disciples looked envious and nostalgic. Not long ago, they also had such treatment. However, the 4th level of the Jade Clear Realm is like a magic spell, firmly placed on the heads of all young disciples. Only by breaking the curse can one enjoy reverence. The ancestors of Qingyun Gate and Chaoyang Peak throughout history are here. Shang Zhengliang stood at the head of the main hall with a solemn and dignified expression, facing the ancestral tablets of the past ancestors of Chaoyang Peak at Qingyun Gate. He respectfully and solemnly said, "Today, disciple Shang Zhengliang wants to take Qingteng as his disciple. Please bless him, Grand Master. I hope he is safe and smooth, and his path is smooth." Listening to Shang Zhengliang's earnest expectations for him, Qingteng was deeply moved and a warm current flowed through his heart. The next second, he was called forward by Shang Zhengliang and kowtowed 3 times to the ancestors of Chaoyang Peak in Qingyun Gate. Then, he twisted 3 sticks of incense and inserted them into the incense burner on the table. At this point, Qingteng officially joined the Qingyun Gate. Yuhong, lead the green vine around and arrange for him to be in Songhexuan. The master will personally teach him how to practice. Shang Zhengliang watched Chu Yuhong and handed Qingteng over to him. Yes, Chu Yuhong respectfully accepted the order. Then, Shang Zhengliang waved his hand and dispersed the crowd, while also keeping a dozen or so elders from Chaoyang Peak. After a few breaths, the magnificent Chaoyang Hall suddenly became quite empty. Sister Tongbing, in these days when I'm not here, there hasn't been any major event at Chaoyang Peak, has there? Shang Zhengliang sat up and looked at Tongbing, the 3rd person on the right. It's quite calm, Tongbing nodded. There is a disciple named Su Guangping who recently broke through the drive-away realm, and is preparing to go down the mountain to practice and find spiritual materials to refine magic treasures. Coincidentally, the first senior brother has returned, and I believe he will visit him soon. Su Guangping. Shang Zhengliang was surprised and immediately smiled, saying, I know him. This is my disciple who was recruited in Qingzhou. His spiritual light is 3 feet high and his talent is very good. I didn't expect him to break through the drive-away realm. I remember he was only introduced for 40 years, right? Yes, I'm only 46 years old today, Tongbing said. 46 years old. Upon hearing this, not only Shang Zhengliang, but also the elders present all smiled. The 4th level of the Jade Clear Realm, the drive-away realm, is a threshold. Many cultivators will never be able to break through this threshold for a lifetime. If one can break through the expelling realm before the age of 60 due to weakened physical vitality, it indicates that this person has a very good talent. In the future, one can at least cultivate to the 8 or 9 heavens of the Jade Clear Realm, and even have a slight chance of breaking through the Upper Clear Realm. This is undoubtedly good news for Chaoyang Peak, which urgently lacks top-notch combat capabilities. Next, Shang Zhengliang discussed matters with more than a dozen elders. Then let's talk about Qingteng. Qingteng, this child, has a high level of talent and intelligence, which I have seen in my life. Even compared to his ancestor Qingyun over 1,000 years ago, he is no less impressive, and even surpasses him. Shang Zhengliang's expression was solemn. You may not know that this son seems to have activated the power of Su Hui. When I taught him for the first time to cultivate, he actually told me 3 secret techniques similar to the clear heart mantra. As soon as this statement was spoken, everyone was startled. First senior brother, are you serious about this? An elder widened his eyes. Take it seriously, Shang Zhengliang said confidently. I have already tried to cultivate these 3 secret techniques on my way back. They are all the top-notch mental state cultivation methods of my Taoist school. Even if I cultivate my mental state in the 2nd level of the upper clear realm, I have gained a lot after practicing them. Hiss. Everyone took a cold breath. Then, Shang Zhengliang intended to teach the 3 secret techniques of Ice Heart Technique, Clear Heart Technique, and Quiet Heart Technique to more than 10 elders of Chaoyang Peak. Unfortunately, before he could open his mouth, he was interrupted by Tong Bing. First senior brother. Tong Bing's face was solemn, and he said with a heavy heart, these 3 secret techniques are the memories of Qingteng, the child's past life wisdom. It's probably not good for us to spread them recklessly. We are all elders and have taken advantage of the child for no reason. I apologize for not agreeing. More than a dozen elders present immediately looked at each other and discussed. Some agree with what Tong Bing said and believe that it should not be spread. There is also impatience in refuting what Tong Bing said. However, as soon as Shang Zhengliang raised his hand, the elders stopped arguing and looked at him together. Shang Zhengliang smiled slightly and looked at Tong Bing with a hint of appreciation in his eyes. He exclaimed, Tong Bing junior sister can stick to her true heart and be upright, which is truly admirable to me. However, before that, I had already asked Qingteng for his opinion. He said that as long as he can make Qingyun Gate and Chaoyang Peak good, not to mention the 3 secret techniques, even if there are many divine skills and secret techniques, he will not hesitate to keep them private. What a good child! In an instant, more than a dozen elders present were moved, happy for Su Qingteng's profound understanding of righteousness, and also happy for Shang Zhengliang's excellent apprenticeship. The elders, who had already had a great impression of Su Qingteng, generously praised him. Tong Bing no longer opposed it and had a better impression of Su Qingteng. Therefore, he decided to teach Su Qingteng seriously in morning classes tomorrow, urging him to practice diligently and break through the realm of expelling things as soon as possible. Perhaps senior brother has really received a proud son from heaven who can be compared to Grandmaster Qingyun. Tong Bing murmured to himself in a low voice, with a pair of bright and lively apricot eyes, staring deeply at Shang Zhengliang. A subtle tenderness flashed in his eyes. After resting, Shang Zhengliang recited the mnemonic and taught the 3 secret techniques of Ice Heart Technique, Clear Heart Technique, and Quiet Heart Technique to more than 10 elders of Chaoyang Peak. Senior brother Danyangzi, could you please record the 3 secret techniques in the book? Shang Zhengliang looked at Danyangzi, whose beard and hair were all white, and Danyangzi smiled and nodded. Junior brother Fan Junyao, you have condensed your essence and become the 2nd flower. You are the closest elder among all the elders present to the Shangqing realm. Shang Zhengliang said with a serious and hopeful expression, I hope you will seriously cultivate and gather your 3 flowers as soon as possible to enter the Shangqing realm. Yes, I will definitely give it my all. Fan Junyao arched his hand and clenched his fist, revealing a clear and beautiful face with a gleaming gaze. Tong Bing junior sister. Shang Zhengliang looked at Tong Bing again and instructed, as an elder who passed on merits, I appreciate it if you could pass on these 3 secret techniques to the disciples of Chaoyang Peak. These are all methods that can cultivate a superior state of mind. Disciples who practice earlier can not only accelerate their cultivation and restrain their inner demons, but also have a certain chance of cultivating a pure Tao heart and realizing the supreme state of the highest goodness is like water. For them, this is a great opportunity and a great opportunity to change their destiny. My Chaoyang Peak will prosper in the future, and 3 parts of my energy will fall on these 3 secret techniques and mnemonics. I must not be careless. Tong Bing is an elder who has passed down the martial arts. He is well aware of the importance of the 3 secret techniques and immediately said firmly, "Senior brother, rest assured, junior sister will definitely do this well." Good. Shang Zhengliang smiled and nodded, then instructed a dozen or so elders. Suddenly, he took a step and turned around, leaving the Chaoyang hall to see his precious disciple. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Songhexuan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Songhexuan Songhe Pavilion is an independent small courtyard. There are many independent courtyards like this on Chaoyang Peak, all of which are places where disciples of Chaoyang Peak reside. However, Songhe Pavilion is a bit special. It covers an extremely wide area and is close to Chaoyang Hall, which is a building belonging to the core area. The small courtyard has white walls and grey tiles, elegant and elegant. The green pine trees in the courtyard bend, the emerald cypress is gloomy, and the flowing water flows slowly under the steps. Behind the walls of the courtyard, there are good mountains surrounding it. Looking towards the cloud-capped mountain top, and at dusk, the sun hangs on the forest tops. Su Qingteng fell in love with it at a glance. What a place of creation! Regardless of past or present life, Su Qingteng never had the privilege of living in such an independent courtyard. I couldn't help but smile and my eyebrows lit up with joy. If junior brother likes it, it's good. Yuhong smiled and said, "Master has arranged you here, obviously he values you very much. Brother Wei's Cuiyin Xian is right next door. If junior brother needs anything in the future, he can come to me. The road to cultivation is long, and we senior brothers need to support each other." Senior brother is right, we can't stop bothering him in the future, Su Qingteng nodded with a smile. The two of them laughed and talked happily. Not long after, Shang Zhengliang walked into the Songhe Pavilion, carrying a bundle in his hand. He saw Yuhong and Su Qingteng sitting under the pavilion chatting happily, and couldn't help but smile with satisfaction. "Master," Yuhong and Su Qingteng hurriedly saluted. "It seems that you have a good conversation." Shang Zhengliang chuckled and handed the package to Su Qingteng. "From now on, I will personally teach you how to practice. This is a set of clothes, and I know you like blue, so I chose a set of blue Taoist robes, all of which are of high-quality materials. There is also a book called Divine and Demon Chronicles, and I will teach you how to read and read. In addition, there is this Millennium Spirit Wood sword." Suddenly, Shang Zhengliang grabbed a wooden sword and said with a smile, "New disciples must learn a set of swordsmanship called Qingyun swordsmanship, which is a basic skill that my Qingyun sect disciples must practice. I have selected a millennium-old spiritual wooden sword from the Lingjian Pavilion, please see if it works." "Thank you very much, Master," Su Qingteng said gratefully. This Millennium Spirit Wood sword is about 3 feet 6 inches long and 1 inch 6 centimeters wide, with a brownish-purple color throughout. The surface texture is delicate and shimmering with a bright black light. After obtaining it, the center of gravity sank and plummeted. Su Qingteng needs a lot of strength to swing. I have many spirit trees on the back mountain of Chaoyang Peak, and the comparison of 100-year spirit trees and 1,000-year spirit trees is comparable. Swords made from this spirit material will have a heavier texture. Shang Zhengliang explained with a smile, however, practicing Qingyun swordsmanship with this kind of sword will have a particularly solid foundation, and in the future, it will be more smooth to use imperial swordsmanship. Junior brother, don't underestimate this spirit wood sword, Yuhong emphasized. It has been refined by magic and can crush gold and jade, cut iron like mud, and has an incredibly sharp end. Su Qingteng was shining brightly, cherishing this 1,000-year-old spiritual wooden sword even more. He couldn't help but live in the pavilion, brushing and holding several sword flowers in front of Shang Zhengliang and Yuhong. Ha! Shang Zhengliang and Yuhong were surprised. Because Su Qingteng was extremely quick to use, holding the heavy Millennium Spirit wooden sword. Although it seemed a bit clumsy, the posture of holding the sword, the movements of waving the sword, and the coordination between the steps were all flowing smoothly, like a skilled swordsman. But he's clearly just starting out and hasn't practiced swordsmanship yet. Is this also Su Hui's ability? Shang Zhengliang was surprised. Junior brother, you have great talent. You can practice it properly right from the beginning. Your future swordsmanship will definitely be profound and unpredictable, Chu Yuhong said with envy and emotion. Su Qingteng, like a precious treasure, did not shy away and practiced a set of Tai Chi sword outside the pavilion in front of Shang Zhengliang and Chu Yuhong. I saw a graceful posture, light and gentle, continuous, with sword light and sound, and a balance of strength and softness. Shang Zhengliang and Chu Yuhong were both stunned. Master, it seems that junior brother is not playing, Chu Yuhong widened his eyes. He is practicing a profound and unpredictable swordsmanship. After speaking, he turned his head to look at Shang Zhengliang and said with confusion, Master, was this what you taught? Shang Zhengliang shook his head. Qingteng, this child, seems to have activated the power of Su Hui and awakened memories of his past life. Shang Zhengliang said with envy and emotion, these are all abilities in his memory. Speaking of which, Shang Zhengliang gently stroked his long beard and reminded, in addition to this sword technique, he also told me 3 secret mnemonics that are comparable to the Clear Heart Mantra, which will be announced tomorrow. After you learn it from Master Tongbing, you must concentrate on practicing it, maybe you can go further. Yes, I understand. Chu Yuhong took a deep breath and a layer of shock flashed in his eyes. He gazed at Su Qingteng's gaze, becoming even more amazed. After practicing a set of Tai Chi sword, Su Qingteng was still unsatisfied and enthusiastically said to Shang Zhengliang, Master, this spirit-wood sword is very good. I really like it. It's good if you like it, Shang Zhengliang smiled and picked up the book Strange Records of Gods and Demons. It's not too early, I'll teach you how to read first. Yes, Master. Su Qingteng nodded and walked into the pavilion, sitting across from Shang Zhengliang, attentively listening to his explanation of Strange Gods and Demons. Chu Yuhong sat beside him, occasionally adding a few lines and inserting a strange anecdote. The master and disciple chatted happily. Su Qingteng, on the other hand, has extraordinary talent and astonishing thinking and insight. He is also able to vividly remember and draw analogies, which has further impressed Shang Zhengliang and Chu Yuhong. So, the sunlight outside the window flickered, and the flower shadows sat forward during the banquet. The sun sets in the western mountains and the setting sun sets in the west. Shang Zhengliang closed his book Strange Records of Gods and Demons, and exclaimed with emotion, You are talented and have the ability to never forget. Reading and literacy are too easy for you. If you have any problems in the future, you can go to the Sutra Pavilion to read books on your own, or seek advice from Master Denyangzi. He is a knowledgeable person, and as long as you sincerely seek advice, he will not hesitate to teach. Of course, you can also find me and other master uncles and uncles. As a teacher, I will stay at Chaoyang Peak for a few years to watch you grow. So, Qingteng, you must work hard and not disappoint Master. Yes, Master, Su Qingteng said solemnly. The next second, Shang Zhengliang touched Su Qingteng's head and said goodbye to Chu Yuhong before leaving. The mountain shadow is about to sink, and the willow shade is gradually disappearing. Suddenly, the Songhe pavilion becomes silent, appearing very desolate. Su Qingteng walked into the kitchen and lit the stove, then poured a few buckets of stream water and started boiling water to cook. Although Qingyun Gate is a sect of cultivators, cultivators also have to eat. Every once in a while, people from Qingyun Gate will specifically go down the mountain to Haiyang City to buy supplies. So, in Songhe Pavilion, there is no shortage of daily necessities. After steaming a bowl of rice and stir-frying a few dishes, Su Qingteng wolfed it down. After eating and drinking enough, Su Qingteng stood in the courtyard, starting to take horse steps and practice pile skills. Kung Fu requires practicing in winter and summer. I can't relax for a moment. In just 4 or 5 days, Su Qingteng's Tai Chi stake technique has already entered the room, gradually showing signs of incorporating the method of energy into his bones and applying it in daily life. Once he completes this step, he enters a state of perfection. At that time, his Tai Chi stake technique was basically completed, causing his body to undergo abnormal changes, giving birth to an internal force, and starting the next stage of practice. From breakthrough in pile skills to boxing and swordsmanship. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Morning Class. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Morning Class. At the beginning of midnight, the dusk is already halfway, and the moon hangs like silver. Su Qingteng was walking horses and practicing pile skills in the yard until midnight, when he returned to his bedroom, took a bath with boiling water, and then crossed his knees to rest. The colorful spiritual energy of heaven and earth enters the body through the orifices of the whole body, flowing along 7 orifices including Zhubin, Fusha, Daheng, Beibei, Qimen, Tiandou, and Lianquan. Suddenly, the last Lianquan orifice was filled with dazzling purple light, and a new meridian was built inside Su Qingteng's body. The third Yin Wei Myth of the 8 extraordinary meridians has been successfully cultivated. Su Qingteng's heart was pounding, feeling much stronger and his heartbeat becoming more powerful. A faint joy flowed through his heart. On the first day of entering Qingyun Gate, Su Qingteng trained into the 3rd meridian of the 8 extraordinary meridians, which was not far from running the little Zhou Tian. This talent is truly amazing. We cannot be arrogant or complacent, we must continue to strengthen our foundation. Su Qingteng said firmly. My cultivation speed is not really fast, not to mention that Master Qingyun can master swordsmanship and Taoism within a year, and I am at the forefront of all disciples. Even most ordinary disciples of Qingyun's sect can complete the cultivation of the first layer of mind techniques in Tai Chi Xian Qing Dao within a year. What makes me stronger than them is that I know the benefits of physical fitness and can also solidify my foundation faster. When I practice Tai Chi sword to the extreme depth, my foundation will be solid and strong, and I will have more confidence in breaking through the 4th level of the Jade Clear realm. This is my greatest advantage. So I won't stagnate for a lifetime like other disciples before reaching the realm of expelling things. Su Qingteng, continue to work hard to cultivate. Su Qingteng murmured softly, then closed his eyes and immersed himself once again in the state of cultivation. The next day dawn. The dawn at the end of the earth is only a moment away, and the remaining stars at the corners of the sea are temporarily setting. The rich purple solar energy permeates the sky and earth, and the haloed Chaoyang peak exudes a colorful stream of light. Su Qingteng swallowed purple qi, and his body was full of spiritual and purple energy. The 4th meridian of the 8 extraordinary meridians was also filled with holes one by one, gradually shining purple light. Half an hour later, Su Qingteng finished his cultivation. He stretched lazily and walked out of the bedroom into the yard. In the cold air, he suddenly practiced Tai Chi. The posture is slow and agile, listening to thunder in a silent place. That is a significant effect of Tai Chi stake technique, as if it is about to trigger a thunderous sound. When Su Qingteng punches and can make a thunderous sound, Su Qingteng's martial arts will enter the hall. It can be said that it has become Mingjin. This is the saying in the Tai Chi Classic, that 1,000 coins cannot buy a sound. After completing a set of Tai Chi, Su Qingteng's spirit was full of energy, his cold and stiff body gradually warmed and eased, and his dormant blood became active again. Then enter the kitchen and start boiling water to cook rice. Green vegetables and white rice again. Su Qingteng frowned inwardly and couldn't help but ponder, practicing boxing and martial arts will consume a lot of energy, and my appetite will also increase. Even if I can breathe spiritual energy to nourish my body, I still need to supplement it with meat nutrition. How can I only eat vegetables and rice? I must come up with a solution. Speaking of which, Su Qingteng glanced at the back mountain. As the saying goes, relying on mountains to eat mountains, relying on water to eat water, relying on the beautiful mountain range of Chaoyang Peak, it is natural to eat the rare birds and animals in those mountains. Perhaps the rare birds and beasts in the back mountain have a unique taste, Su Qingteng drooled excitedly. In a moment, the food was ready and Su Qingteng had finished eating. Suddenly, a melodious bell echoed through the sky and earth, and it was the Jingyang bell of Chaoyang Peak that rang. The morning class has started. Su Qingteng dared not neglect and immediately grabbed the Millennium Spirit wooden sword, strode out of the courtyard with a meteor, and walked towards the Taiji Ping halfway up the Chaoyang Peak. Taiji Ping, located at the Prince of Chaoyang, is the largest flat terrain halfway up Chaoyang Peak. Blocks of blue stone bricks are laid out, with countless uneven large and small pits, all of which are traces left by the disciples of Chaoyang Peak who have been practicing for years and months. When Su Qingteng arrived, many people had already arrived at Taiji Ping. Master Tong Bing stood at the forefront of Taiji Ping, looking proud and aloof as he gazed at the disciples of Chaoyang Peak. He held a plain white jade sword with his back in his hand, shining brightly and the cold air invading him. Su Qingteng, stand here. Seeing Su Qingteng arrive, Tong Bing waved and arranged Su Qingteng to the nearest position to her. This is the core of Taiji Ping. Besides Su Qingteng, there were more than 10 core disciples whom Chu Yuhong, Shen Tiandou, and others had seen yesterday, all of whom were the Chaoyang Feng Tianjiao, who had reached the 4th level or higher of cultivation in the Yuqing realm. And now, when Su Qingteng first entered the mountain gate, he entered this core level. This arrangement of positioning made all the disciples of Chaoyang Peak look at him with envy and jealousy. However, Su Qingteng's expression was calm and he didn't care. He stood up as instructed by Master Tong Bing, clenched his Millennium Spirit wooden sword in his hand, and prepared for morning classes. Qishir. On the Taiji Ping, the disciples of Chaoyang Peak arrived about the same time. Tong Bing clenched his plain white immortal sword and suddenly put on a sword-like posture, shouting loudly. Ha! The disciples of Chaoyang Hall responded with a loud response and followed in a sword posture. Su Qingteng also followed suit. In order to take care of Su Qingteng, Tong Bing remained in a sword-like position and said coldly, "Sink your waist into your abdomen, the sword is in line with your arms, and the strength reaches the tip of the sword." The white snake spits out its message. Jade belt waistband. The iron tree blooms. Professor Tong Bing's Qingyun swordsmanship is a basic swordsmanship that Qingyun sect disciples must learn at the beginning, with a total of 64 sword styles. It includes 14 basic sword styles, including stabbing sword, splitting sword, hanging sword, lifting sword, cloud sword, frame sword, point sword, breaking sword, cutting sword, holding sword, piercing sword, chopping sword, wrist cutting flower, and lifting wrist flower, with 108 complex variations. Duan is very powerful. It was created by the founder of the Qingyun sect, Qingyunzi, and the founder of ZTE, Qingyun, which has gradually been passed down to this day. Originally, morning classes at Chaoyang Peak were also a way of exercising, Su Qingteng suddenly realized. I believe the founder of Qingyun sect also knows the benefits of practicing physical fitness. He borrowed swordsmanship to train his body and cultivate the spirit and energy of cultivators. Su Qingteng had a serious attitude and listened to Tong Bing's explanation of the movements. A 1,000-year-old spirit wooden sword with a bright brown-purple shimmering black light, in Su Qingteng's hand, making it sound like an arm and a finger, and the sword's aura roaring fiercely. Today's morning class, many people are paying attention to Su Qingteng. The rumor that Su Qingteng's spirit shines brightly and refracts 9 colors has spread. Many disciples of Chaoyang Peak know that this new junior apprentice has extraordinary qualifications. However, cultivation talent is one thing, and swordsmanship talent is another. Many disciples of Chaoyang Peak are paying attention to Su Qingteng, hoping to see if he can persist or when he may not be able to. But what they didn't expect was that Su Qingteng had an amazing understanding, wielding a heavy 1,000-year spirit wooden sword with ease. One set after another of sword movements, initially very inexperienced, as if a beginner, and then quickly integrated and performed with extremely high standards. It seems like an old swordsman who has been immersed in swordsmanship for decades. This talent is also amazing. The disciples of Chaoyang Peak were stunned and shocked, but they couldn't help but take a cold breath, envious and sighing. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Transmission of Merit. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Transmission of Merit. Su Qingteng's talent is amazing. Shang Zhengliang said that his spirit shines brightly on his body, reflecting 9 colors. He suspected that during his time travel, his soul crossed the tunnel of time and space, causing it to undergo a transformation and become imbued with the breath of time and space. He watched those science fiction movies and found that the time and space channels inside were all colorful and dazzling mysterious spaces. Perhaps that's all. However, no matter what, he has traveled here and his talent and intelligence are truly amazing. In just 4 or 5 days, Su Qingteng practiced Tai Chi stake technique and had already entered the room. His temples were slightly bulging, and his whole body was full of energy. In addition to exercising his muscles and bones, he was almost about to unleash a surge of internal strength. The horse stance is practiced to the bone, almost to the point of piercing a horse. The walking posture is extremely strange, with the sole of the foot stepping on the ground and the body slightly undulating, practicing both eating and walking. The same goes for practicing swordsmanship. Tong Bing taught him Qingyun swordsmanship, and without realizing it, he combined Tai Chi stake technique with Qingyun swordsmanship. Then Su Qingteng's sword posture became strange. However, although the sword posture is strange, its power is even greater, with each sword becoming sharper and more powerful, as if it has created another unparalleled swordsmanship. From Chenche to noon, the vast expanse of heaven and earth is like a steamer. On the day of a fire umbrella, Su Qingteng diligently practiced swordsmanship and persevered, making all the disciples of Chaoyang Peak secretly admire him. You should know that the Millennium Spirit wooden sword is very heavy, and even adults find it difficult to play. Moreover, Su Qingteng, as a young man, was able to persevere. It has to be said that his endurance is amazing. Such a resilient young man with a tenacious heart and such a high level of talent and insight will surely achieve astonishing success in the future. In just one morning class, Su Qingteng's performance impressed all the disciples of Chaoyang Peak, showing both admiration and envy towards him, showing a lot of kindness. Qingteng, you did a good job today and will continue to work hard in the future. Tong Bing has a keen eye and discovered early on that Su Qingteng's Qingyun sword technique was somewhat eerie. His way of exerting force was sharper and more powerful than most people. However, Tong Bing would not have thought that Su Qingteng's swordsmanship talent was particularly high because he had practiced Tai Chi stake technique. So after praising Su Qingteng, he stood with his sword and gazed at the disciples of Chaoyang Peak. His apricot eyes were clear and bright, and he talked about the main matter. Everyone knows that a new disciple started yesterday. Tong Bing pointed to Su Qingteng, and everyone's eyes also turned to him. Su Qingteng has a high talent and seems to have awakened the ability of previous life's wisdom. Before officially starting, he handed over 3 secret techniques that are comparable to the Clear Heart Mantra to his first senior brother. Today, on the order of my first senior brother, I will teach all 3 secret techniques and formulas to everyone. In an instant, everyone was in an uproar discussing. Most of the disciples of Chaoyang Peak were completely unaware of this matter, so they were particularly shocked when they heard it. They stared at Su Qingteng in astonishment, and their hearts stirred up waves of turmoil. It's unbelievable that it seems to awaken the power of Su Hui in his past life. Is it possible that junior brother Su has the ability to reincarnate? Isn't it a reincarnation of immortals? In addition, some people are asking what Qingxin mantra is and is it very powerful? It's not very powerful, it's a secret technique. A core disciple who is knowledgeable about the situation is explaining to ordinary disciples of Chaoyang Peak. Why are there so many experts who have broken through the drive realm of Changmen Tongtian Peak and Longzhou Peak? It's because they have various secret techniques that Senior Qingyun treasures. This Qingxin mantra is one of them. It is said that practicing to the extreme depth can achieve a superior state of mind that is as good as water, increasing the chance of entering the Shangqing realm, let alone breaking through the expelling realm. As long as we practice this kind of secret technique, whether it's you breaking through the drive realm or me practicing to a higher level, there will be even more hope at this point. The core disciple looked at Master Tongbing and Su Qingteng with gratitude and hope in his eyes. I never expected that our Chaoyang Peak would have such luck to accept a disciple who awakened Su Hui from a previous life. It's truly a blessing from our ancestors. Senior brother, is there really a reincarnation in this world? A disciple of Chaoyang Peak was shocked. The vast world is full of wonders, perhaps. Another disciple of Chaoyang Peak looked enviously at Su Qingteng and said with emotion. There are over 200 disciples from Chaoyang Peak, only a few of whom have broken through the expelling realm. Most of them are below the third level of the Yuqing realm and are stuck in the expelling realm. Suddenly hearing of a secret technique that can increase the chance of breaking through the expelling realm, my heart was filled with excitement and I wished I could cultivate it immediately. So the gaze towards Master Tongbing was filled with desire and eagerness to try, and the gaze towards Su Qingteng was also filled with deep gratitude. For a moment, Su Qingteng's image among the disciples of Chaoyang Peak suddenly became taller. Qingyun Gate is a place for expressing gratitude. Although there is competition among the disciples of Chaoyang Peak and underground current surging, they are still the leader of the righteous path, and everyone is very loyal. At this moment, as soon as Su Qingteng started his studies, he contributed 3 secret techniques and immediately won the hearts of the disciples of Chaoyang Peak, making them look at him with admiration. The struggle for the first heir of Chaoyang Peak will not affect him anymore even if Su Qingteng wants to compete for the position of heir. Today's contribution is enough to make most of the elders and disciples of Chaoyang Peak support him. This is an advantage that neither Chu Yuhong nor Shen Tiandou can match. Chu Yuhong and Shen Tiandou were envious in their hearts, but their eyes towards Su Qingteng were filled with kindness. Because to some extent, even the two of them received a huge favor from Su Qingteng, which was enough to change their attitude and give way in the fight. Even if Su Qingteng's future contributions are greater and his strength is sufficient, he can achieve admirable accomplishments, just like the once brilliant and talented ancestor Qingye, who suppressed Shenzhou alone and was invincible to the world. Even Chu Yuhong and Shen Tiandou would willingly give up their position as the first inheritors of Chaoyang Peak. After all, how dare the firefly light compete with the bright moon? When a person is shining brightly, few people will be jealous of him. Instead, they will worship him greatly and willingly run for him. Is Su Qingteng that kind of person? At this moment, someone on Chaoyang Peak has secretly filled him with such expectations. It's not just 3 secret techniques. When Tongbing passed on the Ice Heart Technique, Clear Heart Technique, and Tranquility Technique to the disciples of Chaoyang Peak, Su Qingteng looked at them with joy and gave himself a grateful look. To be honest, Su Qingteng enjoys it very much. This sensation of widespread attention made him addicted. For a moment, Su Qingteng even wanted to take advantage of the heat and teach Tai Chi stake technique and Tai Chi sword. However, Su Qingteng held back. He admitted that the 3 secret techniques were nothing to him, and Tai Chi sword was also nothing to him. However, at that time, Su Qingteng candidly told Shang Zhengliang and even allowed him to impart knowledge. It was because of the great kindness of his teacher that Su Qingteng was grateful for Shang Zhengliang's life-saving kindness and introduced him to Qingyun Gate, guiding him on the path of cultivation. This great kindness made him willingly do so. After all, Tai Chi sword is extraordinary. It is Su Qingteng's current strength, surpassing ordinary disciples of Chaoyang Peak, and thus providing a guarantee for him to take the lead. So, Su Qingteng is very selfish and doesn't want to share it. If one day, He achieves great success in practicing Tai Chi sword, his strength is reborn, and he steps into a higher realm. Perhaps he is willing to teach and make Chaoyang Peak better, but at least for this moment, Su Qingteng held back. Wait a little longer, Su Qingteng murmured softly. When I become stronger, when I complete my practice of Tai Chi sword, and when I truly integrate into Chaoyang Peak and make it my home. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Back Mountain. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Back Mountain. At noon, on a red day, there were no clouds at all. Su Qingteng left Taijiping and returned to the small courtyard of Songhexuan. He started cooking and started to cook. After he had eaten and drank enough, he picked up a bundle and carried a 1,000-year-old spirit wooden sword, suddenly walking towards the back mountain. Su Qingteng is an orphan in his lifetime. He grew up eating 100 meals in Hongye village and is proficient in fishing in the river and picking bird eggs from trees. I also followed the hunters in the village and entered Peach Blossom Mountain to learn hunting skills. Now entering the back mountain of Chaoyang Peak, Su Qingteng has all his skills and finally has some useful martial arts skills. Behind Chaoyang Peak, towering trees stand tall, with lush branches and leaves like umbrella covers blocking the sky and sun. The air is cold and humid, and the light is extremely dim. Su Qingteng turned the slope and climbed the vines, searching for the trail of the fox, rabbit, and water deer. What a great mountain! But seeing hidden tigers and hidden leopards, hidden wind and clouds, cliffs dripping water, waterfalls flying diagonally, vines hanging upside down, flowing water making a sound, Su Qingteng walked among them, cautiously looking around, afraid of fierce beasts rushing out, but also carefully searching for the beast path that the fox, rabbit, and water deer had walked. This is the skill of a hunter, judging an animal's walking path from the paths in the mountains and forests, the broken and curved shapes of grass and trees, and the feces left by animals. Then, set traps along this route to capture prey. Not long after Su Qingteng entered the back mountain, he found a beast path route and quickly followed this route, taking out ropes and other objects, and setting the simplest trap. Once the trap is set, simply wait for the prey to take the bait. So Su Qingteng took a detour and found a secluded place with a lower air vent. Quietly setting up horse steps and practicing pile skills, time flies without realizing it, an hour has passed. After practicing for an hour, Su Qingteng's eyes shone brightly, his temples slightly bulged, his whole body was full of vitality, and he also felt empty in his stomach. I practiced Qingyun swordsmanship all morning today, and now I have been practicing Zhugong horse steps for another hour. The energy consumption is too high, so Su Qingteng urgently needs food to supplement. He licked his lips and walked up the air with a hopeful expression on his face. In the upwind mountains and forests, before approaching, there came the gurgling sound of wild pheasants and the suspected yo-yo sound of foxes, which stirred Su Qingteng's heart. Approaching, Su Qingteng grinned. In the trap lock of the mountain forest, a wild pheasant covered in white feathers and a red fox with fiery fur were caught. What is this called? Fox catching chicken, hunter behind. Su Qingteng strode forward, and both the wild pheasant and the red fox panicked. They couldn't help but moan wildly, as if frightened. Su Qingteng went to catch wild pheasants first. This is the staple food. He walked forward, gripping the Millennium Spirit wooden sword and tapping the head of the white feather pheasant. With a bang, the head of the white feather pheasant bent down. Then there was no more sound. Yo-yo. The red fox was frightened and suddenly struggled desperately. Su Qingteng watched it and suddenly took a step forward. In an instant, the red fox's body stiffened and remained motionless. With a pointed face with thin eyebrows and eyes, it looked pitifully at him. Its two black dripping eyes rolled around, and a deep yo-yo sound came from its throat. It looked pitiful, as if praying for Su Qingteng's life. Su Qingteng swung his sword and cut off the rope that bound the hind limbs of the red fox. The red fox's body loosened and suddenly regained its freedom, turning around and running. After running a few steps, it stopped and turned around to look back. "Yo yo!" the red fox exclaimed joyfully. "Let's go, let's go." Su Qingteng waved his hand and glanced at the spirited red fox. A smile appeared at the corner of his mouth, and his clear eyes were filled with a faint sense of indulgence. "This red fox is quite cute." Watching the red fox walk away, Su Qingteng turned around and picked up the white feathered pheasant, walking to a small stream at the downwind. He opened the white feathered pheasant's mouth, punctured its belly, plucked its fur, and washed it. A pile of wild pheasant viscera, blood drenched on the gravel. Full of a foul odor. "Yo-yo." Just as Su Qingteng was cleaning the white feathered pheasant, a familiar yo-yo sound suddenly came from behind. Su Qingteng turned around and saw a red fox with fiery fur all over its body, peeking out at him, or more precisely, at the pile of wild pheasant organs at his feet. Its eyes were dripping with beads, its furry tail was raised high, and its nose was slightly raised, as if greedily smelling the bloody smell in the air. "What, do you want to eat?" Seeing the pitiful expression of the red fox drooling, Su Qingteng smiled and pointed to the wild pheasant's organs at his feet, asking. "Yo yo." The red fox tiptoed and suddenly took a few steps forward. With his eyes dripping and twirling, he seemed to be examining Su Qingteng's attitude. Seeing that he had no abnormalities, he tiptoed forward a few more steps. Then, stopped 1 meter away from Su Qingteng. It crouched on the ground, looked up at Su Qingteng, carefully scrutinized for a few seconds, then quickly charged towards the wild pheasant's internal organs, bit a piece of its intestines, and ran. Quickly running into the jungle, it turned around and found that Su Qingteng still hadn't moved. A sharp face with thin eyebrows and eyes had a vivid and lively expression, showing a sense of joy. It quickly lowered its head and ate all its intestines, then with a happy yo-yo, it charged towards the wild pheasant's internal organs again. This time, it has become much bolder. It seems that Su Qingteng did not harm it, so he ran to the internal organs of the wild pheasant and lowered his head to tear and bite it. Su Qingteng is right next to it, and it hasn't escaped either. Hee hee. Su Qingteng smiled and ignored the red fox. He immersed his hands in the cold stream and washed the wild pheasant inside and outside. Wow! A sound of water splashed, and Su Qingteng stood up with a wild pheasant. The red fox was startled and turned around to run a few steps. However, Su Qingteng ignored it and instead carried the wild pheasant towards the nearby fire. He was content and lowered his head to enjoy the food that Bai had picked up. By the stream, at the gravel ground, Su Qingteng lit a bonfire. A wild pheasant was perched on a campfire, and Su Qingteng applied salt seasoning brought from the kitchen of Songhexuan's small courtyard, then flipped and grilled it. The red fox devoured the internal organs of the wild pheasant, and in no time, it ate thoroughly. However, it did not run far, but instead stayed at the gravel and squatted up. Occasionally standing up, landing on all fours, with a pointed face with thin eyebrows and eyes, a nose twitching and eyeballs rolling, vigilantly looking around. So, accompanied Su Qingteng until the wild pheasant was roasted. Pipa. At the campfire, wild pheasant grilled meat had a golden appearance, and crystal clear golden oil droplets dripped into the bonfire, making a crackling sound. Due to the addition of salt and seasoning, the fragrance has already diffused. Not only Su Qingteng, but also the red fox watched the wild pheasant barbecue, greedily drooling and unconsciously approaching the campfire, squatting beside it. It smells so good. Finally, the pheasant was roasted, and Su Qingteng picked up the pheasant and grilled it. He tore off a chicken leg, exhaled a few cold breaths, and then wolfed it down. After a few breaths, a chicken leg was eaten clean, and Su Qingteng casually threw the chicken leg bone to the red fox. The red fox let out a yo-yo and quickly lowered its head to lick it. Yo-yo, yo-yo. Even when Su Qingteng ate the leftover chicken bones, the taste of grilled meat gave the red fox a taste experience it had never experienced before. It made a few excited yo-yo sounds, its furry tail raised high, lowered its head to lick the chicken bones clean, and then looked at Su Qingteng eagerly. That expression was like a domesticated little red dog. End of this chapter.